Buying groceries in the activewear.
Hello everybody, we are in our activewear for our 5th episode for a very special reason, which we will reveal a bit later. And we are chatting to the beautiful Alana van Heerden from Alana van Heerden Bridal today. Hi Alana, how are you?
Hi girls, very well, and you?
We're doing so well. We're so excited to be chatting to you. It's going to be a fun-filled episode, that's for sure.
Alana, tell us a little bit more about your business and how everything started. Did you study to become a fashion designer or dress designer, or what's your background? Tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Thanks, Marga. Yeah, well, I started out actually studying BCom in accounting, and without this story becoming too sentimental, the kind of shift in my journey came along with the passing of my mother. And I think if you lose someone close to you, you realize that, as cliche as it might sound, that life really is short, that given the circumstances and the opportunity, I made a complete career change as well. And I think I was fortunate enough to have people in my life to make it possible for me to go and study another course, which was fashion design. I've always had a massive interest in design and the whole kind of clothing industry. So yes, after my BCom in accounting at Stellenbosch, I went to study fashion design in Pretoria at a college, at the Design School of Southern Africa, and afterwards got an apprenticeship at Marianne Fassler, which is pretty much where I think I've learned everything that I know about the trade. She's taught me so much, and she remains my kind of design conscience. So whenever I do something, I think of what she would say in terms of like, is it absolutely perfection? Never stop short of absolute perfection. You know, always do every consult and fitting in person with your client. Never leave it to an assistant. You know, little things like that I still kind of very value in how I do business. But yeah, so after my apprenticeship, I started making wedding dresses just for friends as a favor, or I mean, I think back then it was a big challenge to make someone's wedding dress. It was a bit daunting. But soon afterwards, we moved to Cape Town, and my husband said to me, like, well, start your own business. And I've never looked back. And wedding dresses kept us so busy that's what we decided to absolutely focus our attention on.
Fantastic. And it's so awesome that you've got the accounting background as well, because now you can do your books for your business.
It does help. It does help to have the background, but it's definitely not what I want to spend my time on. So I have someone who helps in that regard.
Alana, you mentioned that your pick-me-up involves exercise or being active, but it's also a big part for you is giving back to people in need. So we came across this amazing initiative where Jackson's Real Food Market will give a plate of food for every 50 squats that you do. And the three of us decided to take part in this challenge to give back to the community.
As much as I also love a good glass of wine or some music or reading a good book, I think the thing that really lifted my spirits during the first few weeks of lockdown was to get outside and to get active. I think the endorphins and everything just made me really feel a lot better at that moment in time. So I kind of held on to that dearly, and I'm not a fanatic at all, by no means, but I think even if it's just a yoga session or running around with my kids in the garden, it's the one thing that I felt it really lifted my spirits. So this initiative about giving back a plate of food is absolutely wonderful, because that in itself again makes one feel better, to be able to help others in need, to be able to give back. And I think it was exactly a week and a half ago that Jan and I, my husband and I, we also own a wallpaper company, decided, like, we've had a lot of inquiries from friends and family asking me if I can make them cloth masks. And actually at that stage, it's fairly recent, but it feels so long ago, the cloth mask wasn't a necessity yet. So I was a bit hesitant to start making a lot of masks. I wasn't sure what the request for masks would be. But we had this idea of why not then combining our two businesses, his with his wallpaper designs and mine with making things, and print some of our wallpaper designs on fabric, of which we then make masks. And I think our main purpose with this initiative was to be able to support our staff, because I mean, we do it as far as we can, and we have done it, but they would have become, in lockdown, and in this current situation, the wedding industry is absolutely quiet. So there were no brides or consultations or anything. So for me to be able to support my staff was very important for the unforeseen future. And it has been so much fun. Like, I've actually not only escaped the craziness of my kids and my household, but also like a manic mask production happening inside. So it's good to have a bit of a break with you girls. These are the masks that we make, and I think it's quite fun because they are mostly floral and fun prints, animals, jungle, all kinds of exotic prints. And I think if you have to wear a mask, a lot of people have started returning back to work this week. If you really have to wear a mask, I think why not wear a nice one, or like a fun, colorful one.
Absolutely, they are stunning. Your entire range is amazing, and people can find it on your Instagram account, or where must they go to find the masks, or on your website?
So, yes, we're not so clued up, so we haven't launched an online shop or anything, but the actual brochure or the styles available is on our Facebook page and on our Instagram account, both My Wedding Dresses and Groen, which is our wallpaper account. But if they can also just email us, and I can send through all the styles and prices.
Alana, we as planners often don't work with the dress designers directly. It's such a personal thing for the brides to, attend their consultations with you, and they obviously have a lot of fittings, etc. So we don't have a lot of info and background on what goes into the creative process, and how do you compile a budget or put a budget together for a bride. So tell us a little bit more about that side of the business.
Yeah, Marga, you're right. It's a very special, very intimate journey that you walk with a bride. I mean, dressing her for probably the most important day of her life is a wonderful privilege and a big responsibility. So from my point of view, first of all, I try to kind of give as much information and kind of manage expectations as far as possible when it comes to communicating with my brides. We do an initial consultation where we just casually chat about what her ideas are. Some have very specific ideas, obviously. Some have a lot of ideas that we kind of want to combine. But then after the initial consultation, that is when we can really work out a detailed quotation. The first thing we quote on, obviously, is the fabrics involved in making the dress. So we itemize all the fabrics that we would potentially use in the dress. But I think what a lot of brides are uncertain about is what really entails the labor quote. So if I can, shed a bit of light on what exactly it is that we quote for when we quote the labor item. If you have a custom-made wedding dress made, or bespoke as they call it, which is made to measure, it does entail obviously a lot of in-person contact and fittings and meetings with the client. Not only that, but a pattern gets drawn up specifically for that bride's measurements to fit her body absolutely perfectly. I think that's where the secret lies in having bespoke wedding dresses made. Obviously, we do only custom-made dresses, so we don't have a kind of a collection off the rail, as they call it. So that means that every bride comes with her own idea, and we interpret and kind of give feedback on the idea, and that's when we need to source very specific fabrics and trimmings and beading and whatever it needs for that specific dress. So with Pinterest and a lot of ideas, there is obviously brides who need very specific materials, very specific types of laces, which aren't necessarily readily and locally available. So that takes a lot of time to source the exact specific fabrics, to kind of, conceptualize how we'll use different types of fabrics to create a brand new piece of fabric. So just sourcing fabrics and trimmings is a big part of what we do, and it's driving around. And we've started sourcing abroad because I think before COVID and lockdown, the world was, has become smaller, so it's easier to source things, internationally, and it's helped a lot because things, that aren't necessarily available here, you might as well find. We've sourced from New York and Hong Kong, and we find the most beautiful fabrics. So that does take time and effort. And the other thing is, then comes the actual labor of making the dress. So not only the fittings, but hours and hours of, sewing up initial patterns, fittings, and then with bespoke wedding dresses, it's not a process that we can plan from the get-go to the end, because with every single fitting comes a bit of changes, and we allow that. We tell brides that you are allowed to change things in your dress, and we actually tell them that half of the design work gets done in the fittings, because it's difficult for a bride to visualize the final product, which is the product that I have in my head. So I allow for kind of design work to also happen in the fitting, help them pin them, drape, whatever they need to do to be able to visualize the end product. And then I think lastly, what takes a lot of time is handwork, because with wedding dresses there are lots of lace and things involved, and like cutting out hundreds of little flowers, laser cut flowers, beadwork. I think the hours of handwork is often underestimated, but it's what makes it really, really special. So I hope that gives a bit of a kind of just a clear idea of what it is that goes into the labor quote of a dress.
Absolutely. I think it's very labor intensive. And if I just think about the colors that you get in the different sort of whites, off-whites, beiges, etc., and matching that exactly with a skin tone, I mean, that in itself is like quite a long process. And like you say, just finding that perfect match in terms of material and fabric.
Alana, it was so lovely to have you in the car with us and to chat with you, and to also share a bit of giving back to the community with you. It's been a very exciting day. I know I also feel, my spirit feels lifted, and I feel so much better about giving back. And it's such a wonderful time right now to be able to give back when so many people are in need. So thanks so much for spending time with us and for letting us into your world of dressmaking. That's where the fairy tale really takes shape, and it's such an amazing job that you do. So thanks for chatting to us. I will play us out with a little jingle.
In my activewear. Buying groceries in my activewear. Having coffee with my friends in my activewear.
Oh, thank you, Sonal. It was really lovely chatting with you girls. I think we all miss working with brides and miss working on weddings, but I think we'll get the chance to do it soon. And, to chat about it with good friends was just a blast. So thank you, girls. Bye.
Bye.